The servant, if I jest, then there is truth in a jest. Even yesterday, O king, as I have told thee, the beggar which thou now hearest crying aloud in the street was slain by thy soldiers with a sword. The king, do ghosts eat bread, forsooth? Men who have been slain with a sword do not go about in the streets crying for a piece of bread. The servant, forsooth, they do if they are fashioned as this beggar. The king, why, he is but a man, surely he cannot have more than one life in a lifetime. The servant, thy soldiers smote this beggar for crying aloud in the streets for bread, but his wounds are already healed. They cut out his tongue, but he immediately grew another. They slew him, yet he is now alive. The king, that is a tale which I cannot understand at all. The servant, O king, it may be well. The king, I cannot understand what thou sayest either. The servant, O king, that may be well also. The king, thou art speaking now in riddles. I do not like riddles, they confuse my brain. The servant, behold, O king, if I speak in riddles, it is because a riddle has come to pass. The beggar's voice suddenly cries out loudly. The beggar outside, bread, bread, give me some bread. The king, ah, he is crying out again. His voice seems to me louder than it was before. The servant, hunger is as food to the lungs. O king, the king, his lungs I will wager are well fed. Ha, ha. The servant, but alas, his stomach is quite empty. The king, that is not my business. The servant, should I not perhaps fling him a crust from the window? The king, no, to feed a beggar is always foolish. Every crumb thought is given to a beggar is an evil seed from which springs another fellow like him. The beggar outside, bread, bread, give me some bread. The servant, he seems very hungry, O king. The king, yes, so I should judge. The servant, if thou wilt not let me fling him a piece of bread, thine ears must pay the debts of thy hand. The king, a king can have no debts. The servant, that is true, O king, even so, the noise of this fellow's begging must annoy thee greatly. The king, it does. The servant, doubtless he craves only a small crust from thy table, and he would be content. The king, yea, doubtless he craves only to be a king, and he would be very happy indeed. The servant, do not be hard, O king. Thou art ever wise and just. This fellow is exceedingly hungry. Dost thou not command me to fling him just one small crust from the window? The king, my commands I have already given thee. See that the beggar is driven away. The servant, but alas, O king, if he is driven away, he will return again even as he did before. The king, then see to it that he is slain. I cannot be annoyed with the sound of his voice. The servant, but alas, O great and illustrious king, if he is slain he will come to life again even as he did before. The king, ah, that is true, but his voice troubles me. I do not like to hear it. The servant, his lungs are fattened with hunger. Of a truth they are quite strong. The king, well, propose a remedy to weaken them. The servant, a remedy, O king. He stops fanning. The king, that is what I said. A remedy, and do not stop fanning me. I am exceedingly warm. The servant, fanning vigorously. A crust of bread, O king, dropped from yonder window, forsooth that might prove a remedy. The king, angrily, I have said I will not give him a crust of bread. If I gave him a crust today, he would be just as hungry again tomorrow, and my troubles would be as great as before. The servant, that is true, O king. Thy mind is surely filled with great learning. The king, therefore, some other remedy must be found. The servant, O king, the words of thy illustrious mouth are as very meatballs of wisdom. The king, musing, now let me consider. Thou sayest he does not suffer pain. The servant, therefore he cannot be tortured. The king, and he will not die. The servant, therefore it is useless to kill him. The king, now let me consider. I must think of some other way. The servant, perhaps a small crust of bread. O king. The king. How? I have it. I have it. I myself will order him to stop. The servant, horrified. O king. The king. Send the beggar here. The servant. O king. The king. Ha. I rather fancy the fellow will stop his noise when the king commands him to. Ha, ha, ha. The servant. O king, thou wilt not have a beggar brought into thy royal chamber. The king, pleased with his idea. Yea. Go outside and tell this fellow that the king desires his presence. The servant. O great and illustrious king, thou wilt surely not do this thing. Thou wilt surely not soil thy royal eyes by looking on such a filthy creature. Thou wilt surely not contaminate thy lips by speaking to a common beggar who cries aloud in the streets for bread.